I'm here with Miles Lukas, Jiu-Jitsu Black Belt Extraordinaire and Breathwork Master. And today we're going to make the case that your Jiu-Jitsu sucks because you don't know how to breathe.
And maybe your life sucks if you don't know how to breathe.
Let's talk about it. Okay, so Miles, you used to struggle on the mat because you have low lung capacity. So tell me that story and what you did to fix it, how you discovered breath work.
So not only did I struggle on the mats, but I really struggled in life in general. I had, from poor breathing, I had every ailment that you might have if you had poor breath control, if you didn't have these tools. So I used to get sick all the time. I would get sick 5 times a year at least, if not more. I would be congested. It wasn't quite allergies, but I would just get congested all the time. I used to sleep with my mouth wide open. And it's kind of embarrassing because everybody knows, now it seems like everybody knows that how important nose breathing is. But I didn't at the time. And my mouth would dry out at night. I would have a gallon of water next to my bed. I'd have chapstick. I would even cover my mouth with a sheet, a little bit, a corner of the sheet so that my mouth wouldn't dry out quite so bad. And I lived like that for 40 years. And one of the things that happens when you breathe with your mouth at night is cavities. I had the worst cavities as a kid. And I couldn't figure out why, man. I thought I was doing everything right. Along with that, I didn't know I had bad lung capacity until I learned breathwork in my late 30s from the Wim Hof method. So that was my introduction to breathwork. And then when you do the Wim Hof workshops, we do this experiment where we do a bunch of breathwork and then you do push-ups. And all of a sudden, I could do way more push-ups while holding my breath than I could while breathing spontaneously when I did push-ups. So I could do more already. So that teaches you that you can create this energy reserve. So you can overbreathe more than your respiratory needs. And you get this energy reserve. And so I started using that on a jog, for instance, in certain cases. And I started seeing the results. But then, after learning the Wim Hof method, I also learned a lot of the oxygen advantage. Patrick McEwen is a respiratory therapist for now hundreds of thousands probably, and the Buteyko method of breathing lighter and breathing less. And so what a wonderful complement. So Wim Hof teaches you to breathe a ton, and the Buteyko teaches you to barely breathe at all. And so now it's like you're working out the tricep and the bicep. You're working out the everything you could need to know, the whole spectrum of breathing. So I learned to use nose breathing on a jog. I learned to allow myself to feel an air hunger. And what that does is allow oxygen to release from the hemoglobin in your bloodstream better into your tissues, and you don't get running cramps anymore. If you've ever gotten those, do you get those sometimes? Yeah. So I don't get them anymore. I used to get them. I couldn't run 2 miles into my 40s. I really couldn't. And again, it's pretty embarrassing because, I'm playing soccer and lacrosse and these things, and I could do short sprints, but I would get these horrific pains when I would have to run 2 miles for training for soccer. And what I would do would sprint. I would sprint like as much as I could and then start walking while everyone caught up. And people would get pissed off at me. I'm like, you guys don't understand. That's all I can do. So you learn how to breathe light. In some cases, you learn how to use nose breathing. And then you learn how to overbreathe when you need to. So for instance, before you're about to sprint, before we're about to jiu-jitsu it up. Yeah. There's other reasons why hyperventilation is also a masterful tool for creating, controlling, and recovering energy. So after learning all those things, it was around brown belt-ish, and I was able to stay on the mats for longer. I was able to, my favorite thing ever, and I think you might even, unless you've experienced it, it'd be tough to believe me, but you know when you take a couple weeks off and you come back to the mats, how do you feel?
Yeah, you're rusty and your cardio is no good.
And have you ever been like, man, I haven't gone in a while, but if I go today, I'm going to have to suffer through that first one, right? That first day coming back, I'm going to have to sit in the car exhausted, whatever it is. And it deters you a little bit from coming back if you've been gone. Have you felt that way?
Yeah.
So if you learn how to use hyperventilation in the moment, then you can take time off the mat, and I'm talking about months, and come back like you never left. And that sounds, I wouldn't expect you to believe me. You can only experience it. I would expect you to be skeptical until you experience it. But once you do, all of a sudden, that day when you come back, you're gonna have to breathe more. You're gonna have to breathe a little heavier. You're gonna have to be a little bit more strategic with your breath. But man, all of a sudden the world opens up and you can feel very confident going into a lot of situations. And then I learned, I would get anxiety when I would compete. Crazy anxiety. I was about a brown belt. I had kids now. And when I was a blue belt, I didn't get anxiety at all. I loved it. It was fun. Jiu-jitsu is super fun. You just act crazy. You don't have any responsibilities. A weekend's no big deal. And I never got any competition anxiety until I got to brown belt. So then I'm a brown belt and I have kids. A Saturday means a ton. A lot of stuff to be put into place in order to take that Saturday off, And so I would get this anxiety that would be like, I hit buy on the tournament, give him my $100, and I would get butterflies as I pictured my guy across the ring. And it felt gross. It felt like I was sick. You know what I mean? Yeah. Have you experienced that? Yeah. Oh, so it felt like inappropriately anxious, if that makes sense. I'm like, I just feel like, why do I feel sick? This is supposed to be a fun thing. And it really bothered me that I felt that way. And then when you slap hands and you start, man, you're like, I can't make closed fists. Like, I don't have my strength. Yeah. And my mental acuity is a little low. Like, I can't really remember my moves very well. And then you get that adrenaline dump. Oh, man, your mouth dries out until you can't. I couldn't even get my mouthpiece out barely because I had no saliva left in my mouth. I didn't have my strength. My mental acuity was gone. And I was like, man, I know that if you compete more and more and more, eventually that stuff goes away, right? But you can use breath work to give yourself an adrenaline dump before this stuff happens. Use a different kind of breath work to change your brain waves in a way that reduces the activity in the prefrontal cortex, more activity in the brainstem, and now you're in this place of sort of disassociation from stress and anxiety. And then you could use breath work again to refocus, and now your heart rate is low, you already had the dump, so now you're not going to get the adrenaline dump, you're hyper-focused, and then you can use that similar breath work to change your short-term memory. And so now your memory is sharp. You can come up with words better. Your moves are all right where you need them, right where you can bring them out. And, it was such a cool game changer. We have this, you're going to love this. We had a tournament at Gorilla San Jose called the Gorilla Grand Prix. And it was, you could wear whatever you wanted. It was no weight classes, no belts, and wear whatever you wanted. You could wear a gi, you could wear no gi. You could, we did separate it between 170 above and below. So there was two weight classes, I guess. But the goal was, it was like, there's all the guys in the gym that think, they're like, man, if I went all out on this black belt or brown belt, I think I could get him. Like, here you go. This is the tournament for you then. Then come show up and think you can get him. And it was awesome. And so I did it 1 year, and that's when I was still sort of suffering from these issues with breathing. And then I did it the next year, and I won that one. And even my instructor, David Camarillo, sat next to me on the sidelines afterwards. He was like, how did you win that? Like, you weren't supposed to win that, because there was a bunch of people there from all over town, and instructors from different gyms and stuff, and there was a bunch of people with a lot more experience there than me. But I was like, man, there's this breathwork thing that I'm doing, and I go find a room and I just go do it before I train, and I don't know what it is, but it allows you to, it strengthens everything. So it allows you to be more resilient in chokes. It allows you to hold your breath for a little bit longer. So you're in that space of when you do get choked. What does it feel like when you get choked? What do you feel? What starts to happen?
Well, the lights go out.
Yeah, the tunnel.
The tunnel.
Yes. Yes. I like that. Do you hear anything when you get choked?
Sometimes after if the choke releases, I hear like a flutter in the ears. Kind of a
yeah. I always call it the train. The train's coming in, because I hear like a whirr. Yeah, it starts to come. It's like the train's coming to the tunnel is what it feels like. But you can do that. You can simulate that in a degree with breath work too. And so you get very comfortable in that place. And so once that disassociation starts to happen from the lack of blood flow I'm doing that every day. I'm trying to get there, using some breath work and stuff. And so it's very comfortable. So man, what an amazing compliment breath work in general is to jiu-jitsu. But not only jiu-jitsu, your entire life. All the different ways.
So let's talk some specifics. Are there different, these are different techniques that you employ? Like, let's talk specifically for jiu-jitsu.
Okay,
So
sure.
do you do breath work right as you're stepping on the mat? Do you prepare yourself through breath to get into it? Talk me through like a day of rolling. We got a bunch of rounds in today.
We did, yeah.
And so talk me through your process.
Sure. So if you haven't warmed up much and you're going in just a little bit cold, a few big breaths, and we're talking like 30 seconds worth of breathing, creates this neuromuscular engagement, and now you're breathing a little bit better. You make sure that your diaphragm is lowering to its best capacity, and so you're breathing 360 degrees. And with the minimal amount of exercise, it's 30 seconds, you can start to make that happen. So I added into my warm-up. I'm taking some deep breaths while I'm doing a squat, while I'm preparing my knees for tightening up my joints. So that's the beginning. And then you might roll as normal, but you're conscious of your breathing. You're using maybe a little nose breathing at first, and that's probably most typical is what instructors teach is nose breathing. Which is fine, and that makes sense. But nose breathing is great if you can control the pace, that's why I think black belts teach it so much, because they're usually controlling the pace. Right. But if you can't control the pace, you and I are going, we can't necessarily control the pace against each other. It's going to get out of control a little bit, and a little over breathing during the match when you need to, forceful exhales. And what that does too, when you push out like that, you got this connection all the way down to the lowest part of your core. And you can empty the low part of your core. And Master Hickson would say, you get out the bad gas. Yeah. Because you also have the highest concentration of alveoli in your lungs in the bottom. So if you can empty there, then you get the best gas exchange. So this is a gasping breath. That's going to be super unuseful while you're doing jiu-jitsu. Not only that, but your core is light. Yeah. And that's what guys do. They get on the bottom.
And you're breathing shallow. You're not in the core. You're not in the... Yeah.
That's it. They're breathing shallow, and they're not dumping the bad gas. The bad gas is sitting down there, and they're not really getting out that much gas because they're bringing gas in. They're more focused on the inhale.
Yeah.
So Master Hickson would teach us till maybe you can test your nose breathing, see if that works. And then another cool thing you do is add in a pattern. So if we're really going heavy, and I know I'm going to gas out a few times, then you add in a, and that way your monkey mind, this other part of your mind, can latch on to this pattern. Okay, the pattern's going, the pattern's going, the pattern's going. I sweep. There's no pattern. And you get it back.
Yeah.
So you add in this pattern to monitor that you're still breathing. Because of course we're going to stop breathing every once in a while when we got to push, pull real hard. So that's really the majority of it. And then there's breath that we can use in between rounds, which is a little bit more difficult because usually in between rounds is only 60 seconds. 90 seconds is really what you need. So you might get yourself controlled in 60 and then take the first 30 seconds of the next round to maybe continue to get your heart rate down as Master Hickson would stalk his opponents. You see him like standing and like doing these little short steps. What he's doing is watching their necks and watching the size of their head and watching their heartbeat. And they're going, and he's going, and he's stalking them. You see him like a lion, right? And he's letting their heartbeat keep going higher and higher and higher until he knows that they're getting to their max. And that's when he pounces because his is low. He's got another, 90 seconds probably until he's going to hit his max. And so he's got 60 seconds to just, they're going to gas out in 30 seconds. So there's a very in-depth strategy that you can use, bro.
And you were using some of those techniques in between rounds today because we were tracking it with a monitor.
Yeah.
You were redlining yourself at 180 beats per minute. Yeah. We had, a minute to recover?
Right, yeah.
And you were able to lower your heart rate back to a sustainable level again for that next round.
For sure. And if I were to just use spontaneous breathing, it wouldn't be as effective. So you could do it. We can all do it. Kind of relax yourself and get your heart rate down. But if you can switch over to long exhales, which is really, there's a whole recipe I use. There's like 4 stages of trying to get your heart rate down. And then having a bit of awareness too. But if you use that, then you can.
What are those 4 stages? Without going into too much detail, but
yeah, sure. So you can use a Wim Hof style breath just to catch up. So that's a great, really dumps CO2 quite fast. Just taking big breaths, as you imagine you would already. And then you can add in the physiological sigh, which is 60% in and then another 30. Because that's like when you're going to cry.
Yeah.
That's what it is. It's that little staging is something that helps you get into this, to get you into a more relaxed parasympathetic state. It's getting you out of this fight or flight state. And then, and all the while, you're testing a long exhale. You test it out. Does it work? Nah, probably not at first. You take a few more big breaths. Test out a long exhale. It's getting better, but not yet. When you start getting, when you get an air hunger in your long exhale, that's not going to be good for your heart rate because you're kind of like still a little jittery. So that after the physiological sigh, then you really start to try and find those mouth in, quick short mouth in, long exhales. And then once you can get those, then you switch to nose in, long exhales, eventually nose, but you're still doing the longest. It's easiest to exhale through your mouth just because it's a more efficient aperture.
And you have a course that's coming out real soon that I'm helping you develop.
Yeah, baby.
Tell us about that.
Oh, Breath Mastery for Jiu Jitsu. This is really a culmination of everything I've been doing. And I love hanging out with and sharing with my Jiu Jitsu friends more than anybody because they understand anxiety, I think, more than most people, right? Because
and I think they understand the necessity to be able to breathe because we're redlining ourselves on the mat. And if you can keep yourself not redlined, it's going to improve your jiu-jitsu.
It's such a night and day in one class, one workshop, one lesson through this Breath Mastery course. You know how you perform in 10 5-minute rounds. You have a good idea of how you perform. Some of you guys can't do 10 5-minute rounds, which is totally fine too, man. I've been there. And you do this, follow along these steps. It's a technique. And now do the 10 5-minute rounds. And all of a sudden, night and day, that day, people will come back after a class and be like, I haven't done 10 5-minute rounds without quitting. And it's just a technique. You just learn the technique and it works. And so I want everyone to be black belts in breath jitsu.
I've started using some of these techniques today. I showed up late. You guys were already rolling and I had to get myself up to temperature and get myself loose. And so I was doing my squats and my various things to warm up, but I was focused on getting the breathing going with that too. And I felt ready to go pretty quickly.
Amazing. Your intercostal muscles, that is the source of heat for your body when you get into cold temperatures, which is very interesting. So your breathing muscles are the where it all starts. So you improve the beginning, you get that foundation, and you're going to see the results immediately.
So where can my viewers find you?
Breath.fitness is my website, breath.fitness, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. The Breath Fitness YouTube is pretty good. We'll do some collaborations on your amazing YouTube.
Yeah, I'm excited to bring this guy's stuff to the public because it's a game changer. I really feel like it's a game changer. And, it's the little things that make such a huge difference in jiu-jitsu. You can develop skill, but then where do you go from there? It's the little things that can bring you over the top. So I'm really excited to be participating in this.
And this must be the one thing that universally everybody needs this. There is nobody that, unless you're already black belt and you're never getting beat, but again, nose breathing's taught so much. If you were to lose a match and walk off the mat lightly nose breathing, did you really give it your all? Chances are that you didn't. So, so many great things that you can learn from this course, and I'm super excited to share. Breathe well, my friends.
Thank you, Miles. So we're here. I can either lift, but if I do that, I'm going to really bring it with me.
I want to be past his head.